Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me today. My name is Michael Weir. I'm a Senior Technical Enablement Engineer in the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence here at Ingram Micro, here to talk to you today about some tap dancing with China. Might initially sound like I'm talking about this. I'm talking about some tap shoes and some fine tea in a very nice cup, but that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about a breach by a Chinese group called Salt Typhoon into the systems that the United States typically uses for network taps and telecom taps, and potentially access to the data that was going across those. Before we go any further in this, though, we've got to talk about what is a network or telecom tap. These are otherwise known as wiretaps. What they are, they send an exact copy of the data going across a link to someone other than the intended recipient. So if they're between me and my ISP, everything I do that is web browsing or going over that link goes out to the ISP, exact copy, and I have no visibility into it because it's just being copied out. It's not being blocked. Why? So there are legitimate reasons for law enforcement to do this. There's also legitimate reasons for employee monitoring to do it. Troubleshooting, anytime we're watching over a shoulder is going to be advantageous. The upside to using a tap is it's a silent way and a simple way to spy on a target. As I said before, the target, unless there's very, very specific protections in place, has no visibility to the fact this is happening. It's effectively someone watching through a window or something along those lines. They don't have any information or any idea what they are that they are being watched, so they behave as normal. The downside is this collects large amounts of sometimes or even mostly irrelevant data because you might be looking for one specific action, activity, browsing, a segment, something along those lines. But with a tap, you're just getting everything. Unless you build filters and that sort of thing, it's just pouring through. So what happened in this attack? So this attack was by a Chinese group called Salt Typhoon, and it was primarily aimed at law enforcement taps. These are legally permitted and court-required taps. They're based on probable cause, reasonable suspicion. They're authorized when they're asked for their things the ISP is required to comply with. These include taps that are being done for national security reasons. As I said before, this attack was linked to a Chinese group called Salt Typhoon. They do have links to the Chinese government. What they did is they gained access to our internal systems for tapping. They gained access to routers and gained access to methods and potentially also gained access to the data that was being collected from the taps. The scope of this is still being assessed as of this speaking on October the 8th. This is also severe. The attack was undiscovered for months. We don't really know for sure yet how long this attack had been going on. Because of the scope of the attack, how long it had been going on, the access to data that could have happened, the access to techniques that could have happened, this is being called catastrophic, and it's being called unprecedented in the scale and depth of the breach, as well as who was being breached at what level. So this is an important attack to think about. The vector and impact, I like to tell you how things happen so we can maybe save ourselves from them. The probable cause of this was a router breach. It appears to be a malicious reconfiguration of Cisco core routers initially, maybe other manufacturers as well. As I said, malicious configuration done by a bad actor, not a misconfiguration. The targets, and part of the reason this is catastrophic, is these are really high value targets. We're talking about Verizon, AT&T, Lumen are presently identified victims. There may be more as these things come forward. As I said, this is October the 8th when I'm speaking. This was also a very comprehensive attack because we don't know how much was exfiltrated yet, but it has the potential to be all of the web traffic from all of the people on whom there were law enforcement taps, which, as I said, is going to include people who were suspected in criminal and civil cases, but also people that were being tapped in cases of national security, which potentially could include Chinese nationals in the United States. So this is a sensitive population from whom this data is being taken, and potentially up to all of it has been exfiltrated via tap to bad actors in China. So how can you prevent this from happening to you? Because obviously if you're watching this, you're concerned in cybersecurity, and this is probably making you at least a little bit paranoid. There are some potential defenses. Number one potential defense to anything along these lines, data exfiltration or misconfiguration or anything like that, is quality network monitoring. So you can detect a breach as soon as it happens. You can say this is an anomalous traffic flow. You can say, we are seeing misbehaviors. Obviously, if it's between you and your ISP, that's not necessarily something you can watch. But if it's a malicious reconfiguration of your router, something malicious happening in your network, you can detect it. You've got a SIM product, a SOAR product, network detection and response, extended detection and response. There's going to be something that will detect this change. And of course, part of detecting a change is configuration management and configuration change management. Now, a lot of vendors actually have this built into their products. It's just a feature you can enable that will either give you syslog alerts when there's been configuration changes or do workflow management approvers for any changes, that sort of thing. If not, it's something you can usually add via an endpoint management solution or utilities built by other vendors, but make sure you're monitoring for any configuration changes. Now, obviously, somebody funded by China and their national government and their military is going to be able to overcome a lot of these defenses I've spoken about so far. But then again, that's also not something, unless you're a highly sensitive target, you're probably facing. We're facing more domestic bad actors or people just after money. Last, of course, is your defense in depth. So you have layers of defense at multiple points. There's no situation where if this one thing is breached, then the keys to the kingdom are grabbed and everything is open. What you want to do is network segmentation and do network layers and layers of security to minimize the scope and severity of any incident. So you might do, say, a firewall at the network edge, and you might do some network-based data loss protection or data leak prevention, whatever you want to call it. And then you might do that same data leak prevention on the endpoints. And you might have antivirus on the endpoints. You might have 15 different network segments. So there's different ones for different types of devices and different user groups. So that even if there does become a compromised machine somewhere in your environment, and even if you don't detect it right away because you don't have good visibility, the damage it'll do over time is as small as possible. Now that I've given you all this intimidating information and given you these recommendations of what to do, how do we go about implementing it? How do we go about fixing it? Well, this is a time to let us help. So as I said, I'm speaking from the Ingram Micro Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. We are here to help you. There are two email aliases you can use, cybersecurity at ingrammicro.com and usservices at ingrammicro.com, to get information, set up appointments, that kind of thing with our specialists and our technologists. In fact, that scan right there, if you scan that Scan Me, that is going to take you right to our bookings page. It's not going to take you to a virus or anything, I promise. We also have the security line card out there. This is a cybersecurity resource that has all of the vendors we have and all the products those vendors make. So if you say, man, I really need an XDR solution, you can see who makes those XDR solutions, see who the contacts are for those, and see if that's something applicable to you. As I said, that bookings link, that QR code will schedule time with an expert. We also have a solutions design and services wing, which you can get to through both of those email aliases there. And if you're a partner, you have access to that phone tree and those call and bookings as well. We also have services we deliver, such as deployment services, managed services, penetration tests, web app testing, that kind of thing. You can use Ingram Micro as your services delivery partner. All of this is on your X4C or Xvantage platform if you're watching this as a partner. Thank you very much for giving us your attention today, and I hope you have a very good rest of your day.